Well, for something that was jammed on and couldn't move, now there we go, job done. Well, it's February now and it hasn't blown up yet, but I'm doing a 600-mile round trip starting tomorrow night. So I decided, because there's nothing in the service history, decided I would change the gearbox oil because I've got no indication of when it was done. So there's the last dregs of it dripping out now. Got a new crush washer, a new drain plug. That's the original refill plug which I'm using. Got my gearbox oil over there. And if we pull out what's taken out, that really, it's difficult to tell because there's no combustion anywhere near gearbox oil like there is with engine oil. It doesn't look horrendous, so I don't know, maybe it has been changed at some point in the past and not on the service history, or it's been done before the service history that I've got. So that's either 18-year-old gearbox oil that's done 58,000 miles, or it isn't. So the mileage is nothing, but if that is the original oil, it's 18 years old. So doesn't look in bad condition if it is. Anyway, on with plugging it back up again and refilling it now. Right, so the gearbox oil is done. That's the dregs of it in there. And the old oil, there was some separation. It was a little bit streaky, but there was no bits of metal. Everything was very uniform. It was pretty much just as light when I started pouring it as it was when I finished pouring the last little bit. So it wasn't like there was loads and loads of metal shavings that had sunk to the bottom and made it darker. You can't really see in there, and that's the old oil. So that gearbox, I suspect, is probably in all right condition. I'm guessing I've got, it's supposed to be 3.4 litres. So that's a litre in there, and the others are filled all the way to the top, so they're litres. But they're filled all the way up to the top. And there's the 750ml mark, and there's the extra, so that's about a litre in there. And then the others are up to that litre and then a little bit more. So I definitely got just about 3.4 litres out, I'd have said, which is what it's supposed to be. And I've got up there I've probably taken about 0.4 litres out of that one, plus those three, so I think I have done 3.4 litres, so there was none clogged up anywhere. So I think that's a good job done there. I think that gearbox is hopefully good to go for a little while yet. Right, car cut out randomly last night on the way up to Mum's. It was pouring down with rain, so I suspect, although I'm not sure, that some water got somewhere where it shouldn't have done, maybe around into the alternator or somewhere up onto one of the a sensor somewhere, and waterlogged it and caused it to cut out. Because after I sat for 5 minutes it was fine and it drove home, but it's been idling lumpy today, so I've taken the air cleaner off. What I'm going to do is take that throttle body off and give it a good clean inside. Although it doesn't actually look that dirty, but at least it's something that we can rule out. Someone's already been in here before, because the thread to the Jubilee clip that hold it on is all churned up, so someone's obviously been in there before. But I'll take it off carefully and have a look. Oh, that is pretty dirty actually. Dirty on that side. Pretty old. Well, give it a clean as best as we can and see how we get on. But that could be part of it. Not going to hurt anyway. It's not going to hurt if we can get that cleaner. Right, well, the throttle body's had a bit of a clean up inside. It wasn't actually horrendous, but it's better now, so cleaner can only be a good thing. The cleaner the better. So we'll stick it back on, reset the idle and see what happens. Yeah, I'll just stick back on there, and the inside has just had a bit of a clean up as well, so we'll see if this does any good. Right, well, after owning the car for nearly a year, I can finally get underneath it, because we've had the pit in the garage mostly pumped out. So I can finally have a look and see what's going on underneath. See what I can spot. I can see anything obviously wrong, and what sort of condition the chassis is like. So, first of all, start at the front. Hoses look alright mostly. Bit of a leak of something there. And that looks like it's come from somewhere else. Actually, that's all dry, that's just a splash. So sump is good. Back of the block looks good. Gasket looks good, oil filter's good. Bottom pulleys look good. Drive shaft aren't horrendous. Gearbox looks alright. I cleaned all that and changed the gearbox oil. There is a bit of a oil leak coming from somewhere. I cleaned all that, so there is a little bit of an oil leak coming from somewhere, but it's and I said that's engine oil rather than gearbox oil, because the gearbox oil is brand new. Can't see where that's coming from. It's somewhere up there, around that end. Steering rack doesn't look obviously wrong, but the steering does feel a bit weird, so potentially there is an issue somewhere in the steering rack. It's always felt a bit wonky. Source looks pretty good. I think that thing there is the drain plug for the vent, for the bulkhead. Master cylinder looks alright. A bit of rust on that sump, but it's not actually horrific. I will give it a good clean and brush off. Okay, let's move it forward a little bit. Underneath those chassis rails are all good, there's no rust or anything in there. A little bit of rust starting to happen now. That's really not bad. Oh, underneath this is really sound. Okay, that could do with being replaced. I've just taken off. Anti-roll bar bushes are a bit short. Some of the wishbone bushes are a bit short. But it's not really bad at all. Yeah, anti-roll bar bushes need doing. Brake calipers are seeing better days. Exhaust isn't amazing, but exhausts are service items anyway. Heat shield looks good. Well, chassis at the front looks fine. You can't argue with that at all. Gear linkage rod is bad. Nothing looks awful. Nothing looks awful. Chassis wise, that's good news. Right, excellent. So the front of the car doesn't look bad. Right, we have got a little slight gearbox leak. That's a new sump plug and washer from when I changed the gearbox oil a couple of months ago. And I cleaned all this underneath here. And up there, you can see where that's wet. And that's brand new, very fresh oil. Oh, can't see. The light's bleaching it out, but yeah. That's very fresh gearbox oil. So it's spotless, it's not dirty at all. So that's clean oil. And I haven't changed engine oil, so it can't be that. So it must be gearbox oil. So okay, I think that's that drive shaft seal up there. Right. Right, well, not you've noticed, because it doesn't actually look much different, but I have actually brushed the sump. Brushed all the surface rust off as best as I could. Now I'm going to give it a bit of a paint over with some Cure Rust and some Hammerite Rust spray, and that'll stop the sump from leaking. Although I don't think it was bad, but just in case, because I'm not going to go under here very often, so better safe than sorry. Right, so I just put a second coat of the Cure Rust paint on the sump, and just waiting for that to dry, and then I'll go over it with some Hammerite and that'll sort that out. So in the meantime, I'm looking at trying to figure out my slightly wonky steering, which has been like it since I've had the car. And lo and behold, up here, there we go, I've got a loose track rod end. So that could absolutely explain the steering. So that's not the end of the world. Other side's fine. So there we go. I don't think that's too bad. Right, well, there we go. That is the sump. Wire brushed, coated with Cure Rust, and now sprayed with Hammerite anti-rust paint. There's some runs. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to look pretty, just has to not rust. So there we go. That is no one's going to see it. I just need to know the sump's not going to start seeping oil through it because of rust. It wasn't that bad, but just in case I end up keeping this car for a couple of years, I need to make sure that wasn't on the card. So that's a nice fresh rust proof sump, so I'm going to call that a job well done. Okay, right, so we're under the back now. Again, there's nothing horrible. Those seals on the inside don't look bad on this side. We've got some surfaced rust there on the torsion bar and along there, but it's not awful. Give it a little brush and a spray, that's not the end of the world. Coming up there, little bits, but nothing horrendous. The worst rust that I've found so far was way up there in the inner arches, but I've already treated that as best as I can. I've cleaned the shocks up as best as I can and painted all with the rear trailing arms and springs. There's a little bit of rust up there on that spring mount on that cup. That's mostly plastic, don't have to worry about that. Floor plan, that's a fuel tank there. Floor plan is really good, absolutely no complaints about that at all. The exhaust is on the way, but not bad. Seals look good all the way along. Seals are really good. A little bit of rust there, but there's nothing Nothing too bad to worry about there. That's on the jacking point, that's not too bad. Tiny little bit starting on the inner arch there. Again, get a bit of view of that. I can't. It's not too bad. Again, the spring cups on this side need a little bit of a spray maybe. Shocks on the inside of the rear drums aren't brilliant, but I'll just limp those along until I need to do something with them. So really the only real issue is a little bit of surface rust here on this torsion bar. A bit of flaking on the back, it's not bad. I'll brush all that off and spray it up, that really isn't too bad at all. Yeah, can't complain about any of that for a 18-year-old car. These bits up here aren't brilliant, but they're still solid. So, even those inner wings aren't bad really. I did have a look at those when I first got it. Don't look too bad at all. As far as I can see up there, the sills are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. That's amazing, to be honest. Underneath there, and those sills there. So the only real issue, the only urgent repair is one track rod end. And the drive shaft oil seal, which I might just leave because the amount of oil that's coming out of it is so minuscule. I don't think it needs to be worried about just yet. Yeah, I don't think we're looking too bad really. Rusty rear drums, but I've put new shoes in them, so I really don't want to change them. So I don't have anything to do back here other than a little bit of spraying up here, which is not the end of the world at all. Like so, yeah, all good. Alright, so under the back end now, just done a little bit of rust treatment on some odds and ends. That bit up there, this here, this the rear torsion bar. There's a little bit of surface rust on it, so that's all been brushed back and it's had some cure rust put on it. What I'm going to do now is whack Hammerite paint all over it. So I'm up there on the torsion bar, up underneath the torsion bar there. It's not perfect, but it's going to hold back that surface rust just in case I end up having to get a year or two out of this car rather than just the one up there in that bit of box section. And in there, it's all had a coat on it, which hopefully reacts and stops. Well, it won't stop it permanently, but it will slow it down. So I'm going to spray it all now and hopefully lock it in, keep the water out of it. Even if it slows it down for 1 or 2 years, that's 1 or 2 years before it starts to properly rust, because these bits of the car are up here and the subframe and the suspension hanger, these are MOT fails. If the rust sets in here on top of the suspension mounts, they're MOT fails 100%, and it's not worth cutting these bits out and welding new bits in on a disposable Renault Clio. It's not like it's an E-Type Jaguar or something like that, so a little bit of preventative maintenance as a temporary slow the rust down. So on with the spraying now and see how it looks after that. Right, well, there we go. That's another job done. Preventative maintenance there. That's the anti-rust spray. That's like a glorified stone chip really, I suppose. Over the torsion bar, on the rear suspensions, underneath the spring cup holders there, those bits of suspension arm there. Like I said, it won't be permanent and it doesn't look very pretty, but that will slow rust down for as long as I want to run the car anyway. So yeah, that's a job well done. Bit of the inside of the arches there as well. That's where the jacking points are. Not that they were rusting, they were in good condition, but that's where they do start to get eaten, so that's going to help that. Right, magic, job done. Nice one, well done me. Okay, last little bit now to tidy up as best as we can. Is this little bit here on the just above the offside front drive shaft. There's your oil filter there. That leg is it's got some quite deep surface rust. That needs to be sorted out. I think there's only so much I can do because I don't think I can move that pipe, but I can attack it as best we can anyway. Let's see how we do. Fingers crossed. We'll make it look a bit better, if not perfect. Right, let's crack on. Well, that's stage one. It's had a good paint of the rust converter. So now that I have to sit for half an hour, give it another coat, and then leave it an hour or so, and then go over it with the Hammerite, and again hopefully slow that down, because that's an important bit. That starts to rust through, that'll be the car finished. That's one of the front chassis valves, so definitely want to keep that from rusting. But yeah, hopefully make a start. Right, and there we go, that's the last bit done. That's that chassis leg treated and sprayed as best as it's going to get done. Doesn't look too bad now. And a bit, get sunlight on that bit there. Oh, it's gone dark now, hang on. Yeah, no, I can't get any light on it now, it's dark outside, so I'm running a bit low on light. There we go, yeah, you can see it now. That is not rust free, but rust covered. And hopefully that won't start bubbling through for a little while. So that is everything rust wise now underneath done. Alright, 21st June 2023, 61,178, so it's done about 6,000 miles since I bought it last year. And today is service day, so Renault original coolant, proper oil, radiator flush, oil filter, fuel filter, air filter and spark plugs. So gonna get a little bit of TLC today. It's well overdue, not well overdue, because I've only done 10,000 miles on the oil that's in it, but the oil that's in it is 2 years old, so it's really time for it to come out. I've got to do a long drive tomorrow, so nice fresh service, and I'll give you a chance to go underneath it and clean the around the gearbox and the drive shaft oil seal. That liquid moly that I put in it has probably done a good few 100 miles now, so that should have had a chance to work around and hopefully seal that seal up. So I will I'll clean the drive shaft oil seal around there, and then I'm driving to Chester and back, and then when I get back that'll be about 500 miles, and I'll have a look and see if there's any oil there. So yeah, let's crack on. Right, first things first. Done. Right, started driving to warm the car up and nearly forgot to do this. Right, well, that's filled that up quite a bit. Well, hopefully that's not too much. Didn't realise quite how full that expansion tank was. Well, it's in now. Right. Well, congratulations to me on finding the world's most stubborn radiator clip. Even when you've dremeled it in half, it still won't come off. Amazing. Okay, bottom hose replaced with a proper Jubilee clip rather than that awful thing that was on there. That's been running for 10-15 minutes, got up to temperature. No leaks that I can see, seems good. Here is the bottom of the gearbox, that's where I changed the gearbox oil. Up there is the drive shaft, and I've just cleaned all of this. The liquid moly has been in for a few hundred miles. So all that has just been cleaned, and the little protector has been cleaned. So we'll stick all that back on. That just hooks underneath there. We'll drive the Chester in back. We'll take it back off again and we'll see if it's leaked. Right, let's get on with that. Right, there we go. There's the gearbox splash guard in place, and no oil to be seen anywhere inside it. And it's up under there where you just can't see. Just there potentially is where it was coming from. But that is oil free now, so we'll see how that goes. Right, there we go, drip drip drip. The oil is coming out. Managed to catch all of it. Give that a few minutes just to drain, then we'll try and attack that filter. Oh yeah, that's 2-year-old oil. It's only done 10,000 miles. It hasn't done a huge amount of mileage, but 2 years is a long time for oil. But it's just draining all right. I've seen worse. Right, sump plug, nicely cleaned. Threads are all good. That has been painted with hammerite on the outside to keep it in good nick. Yeah, that can be reused. That's no problem with that. And got a nice new crush washer which came with the oil filter. It's very nice of them. So it'll all get a wipe underneath in a couple of minutes when it stops dripping, and that will go back on. Right, it's running. We've got no oil leak coming from the sump plug there. No oil coming from the filter. That was a horrible thing to change that. And we've got no water leaking from the new coolant, the Jubilee clip. So, not looking bad so far, hopefully. Right, Clio spark plug change time. How are they looking? Oh, they don't look bad. Come on, get into focus. There we go. Yeah, they're not bad looking spark plugs. Yep. They're really not bad at all. Just be sure to get the camera to focus. Yeah, there we go. Right, not bad. So let's chuck a new one in. We're doing these one at a time. So if they all look like this, then we're doing okay. Well, that's the last one. In now, that's all 4 plugs changed. That's them. They're all much of a muchness really. There's a little bit of oil on the thread, so maybe the rocker cover gasket isn't once what it was, but no oil will get actually onto the plugs themselves. The air filter isn't bad really, but we will change it. Nothing too horrendous in the air box. No, not bad really, not bad. We'll whack this air filter in. Yeah, nice and solid this one. Yeah, there's a difference, but that one's due and passable just about. Right, so airbox back together, and that's the car. Fresh oil, fresh coolant, fresh oil filter, fresh air filter, fresh plugs. Gearbox oil was done about 6 months ago. It's not in bad nick really now, touch wood. The only thing I'm not going to do is the fuel filter, because the service interval on that is about 100,000 miles supposedly. And this has only done 60, and I've got some other stuff to do, so I can live without a fuel filter. Maybe I'll do that when I get back from my road trip tomorrow. But this is the important stuff. Okay, so the car's just got back from a 500 and something mile return trip, and there is still a tiny little bit of oil coming from that oil seal. I cleaned all of that off, so that liquid moly hasn't completely fixed it. There's a bit of oil there. There was no rain the whole time, so none of that is water. That is oil, and that was completely bone dry when I put it back on. So the liquid moly, as it turns out, hasn't 100% fixed that oil leak. Yeah, that is nice fresh oil. And I don't know what else that could be. Well, I have just changed the engine oil, but where that's coming from, I'm going to suggest that is more than likely a gearbox oil leak, but a very slight one. But yeah, just pity the liquid moly didn't fix it completely. That's your fact, I think, if I look up there. Well, hold on, just dropped my light. If I look up there, can I see? Actually, maybe it's not a drive shaft seal. Well, I don't know where that's coming from then. It's very minor, so I think I'm going to live with that, bearing in mind the age of the car. And the fact that it doesn't need to last another 600 years, I think I'll live with that. And there's only one more little thing that I want to do on the Clio really, and that is the inside of that airbox there. That's circular hose connection, goes onto the throttle body, and it's supposed to have a little rubber gasket on it, which it does, but it's split. And what that means is it's just not quite airtight. And I wonder if the fuel trim levels are quite high. I think it's like 50% out, which is an awful lot, and there's no air sensor or anything before this, so I don't know why that would affect the fuel trim, but it could potentially, this little split could be allowing unmetered air to go in, certainly unfiltered air to go in, which is bad enough. You can't get these, well, I can't find where to get one anyway, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of a Mickey Mouse job-ish and just silicone it, put a little wodge of silicone in between the two sides to seal it up that way, and then just keep an eye on the fuel trim levels and see if that makes any difference. But other than that, this car's in, well, it's in as good a condition as it's ever going to be. Nice fresh coolant in it now, the right colour. Nice clean air filter, clean plugs, clean oil filter, clean oil. Just did a 530 mile return trip to Chester. I haven't done the miles per gallon calculation yet, and the car's too basic to have its own trip computer, so it doesn't do it by itself. But it's certainly over 60 miles per gallon. So we'll just put a bit of silicone on here, put the airbox back on, and then keep an eye on the fuel trim levels and see what happens. Alright, well, so I had a little bead of silicone all around the inside just to hold it in place, and a big wodge of silicone just across the top to bridge that gap in between the two bits. I'm going to let that go off for another couple of minutes. I've been holding it in place for 5 minutes just while it starts to go off. So that's just stick like that now, and then I'm very carefully going to put the airbox back on without disturbing that, hopefully, and see if that should hopefully give me a bit of seal, and then I'll see if that has made a difference to the fuel trim levels. Right, well, that's gone on okay. There's a little squish of silicone there, squished out as I clamped it up. Hopefully that'll be a slightly better seal, and we'll see if it makes any difference to the fuel trim levels. Right, so we're at 62,000 miles now, nearly 63,000 miles, so it's been a good few hundred miles since its service. The short-term fuel trim is still showing positive, well, over 50%, hovering sort of 50 to 55, 57%, and the long-term fuel trim is at positive 54%, and that's gone up a little bit more since I stopped using V-Power. I was using V-Power to start with, and it was bang on 50% for both. So now it's at 49, 50 and 54 with just regular octane fuel. But it doesn't really seem to be making much difference to anything, because it's running at 60 miles per gallon plus when you're on the motorway. It's charging fine, and more importantly, today it passed its MOT without a single advisory, not one. So you can't argue with that. Whatever the fuel trim says, obviously not having any effect on emissions or the way it's running or anything, because it's flowing through its MOT, not a single advisory. No fault codes. Mil status off. So I'm going to go on the assumption that whatever's wrong, well, not wrong, but whatever's causing this fuel trim reading is having no effect whatsoever on the day-to-day running of the vehicle. All the sensors that this can read are passed anyway. So no idea. Like I say, I'm not bothered because it's flowing through its MOT. So I'm quite happy. Little Clio, it's invincible.